Welcome to another episode of the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong, and today we have another great guest. He comes highly recommended, mainly because he is an expert when it comes to helping people recalibrate their mind operating system so that success feels powerful and not pressured. He's been working with multimillionaires, entrepreneurs, professionals, helping them achieve more without sacrificing their inner peace. He has over 4 decades of experience working in the field of subconscious behavior and human performance. He's also been able to help people upgrade their hidden beliefs so that it doesn't lead to stress and overwork and also self-doubt. He is the author of 7 books, two of which is One Belief Away and Get Out of Your Way, and then also been featured in an award-winning film Zero Limits. So please welcome high performance mind architect, Mr. Tim SHURR.
Hey, Fong, pleasure to be here. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Awesome, me as well. So thank you very much for being here. I gotta ask, how did you become this mind architect expert? Because that sounds
Yeah.
like an awesome title.
Well, it has been an evolution over the years. So about 35, 36 years ago, well, more than that now. Wow, getting old. So about 40 years ago, I had a lot of anxiety. I remember going to a counselor and he said, Tim, you have generalized anxiety disorder. And I'm like, well, how do I get generalized confidence in order? And he didn't really know. And so I made it my lifelong pursuit to try to figure out how to replace the fear of not being good enough, imposter syndrome, always chasing validation, trying to achieve goals and without my sabotaging it. And I wanted to figure out how could I create more success and fulfillment in life, but do it with peace instead of pressure. And so I got my degrees in psychology, but I felt like talk therapy was too slow. Then I had a chance encounter with a hypnotherapist who came to our college to do a guest talk. And he asked for a volunteer, and I didn't know anything about hypnosis, so I said, "Sure, I'll cluck like a chicken and make my friends laugh." And but that's not what happened. Within about 5 minutes, I felt this sense of peace inside that I never felt before. I'm like, "Well, what is this?" So that kind of led me into looking more into the other peak performance or alternative therapies like hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, the same kind of tools and strategies that Tony Robbins was going through as well. And he made them famous. And so I've been using those tools and putting it to the test and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, and what's going to produce the best amount of results. And so over the time I was a hypnotherapist, I was a coach, I was a corporate consultant. And then when I started working with like venture capitalist founders and people that were really successful in business, they don't like words like hypnosis, things like that. And so I'm like, well, what am I really doing? And a friend of mine says, well, you're creating inevitable outcomes. And that's what an architect does. They design inevitable outcomes. And you just do it with people's minds. And so that's where the mind architect came from.
I gotta say the word architect does have a better ring to it than hypnotist, and I was
Agreed.
gonna jump into that because that word sometimes gives negative connotations to people. It's like, oh, it's mind controlled. I don't want to actually do this, but do I trick my mind by using hypnosis to do all this other stuff, which I actually want to do? So when it comes to what you do, how much how much of it is coaching and helping people think of things in a different perspective versus brainwashing when it comes to
Yeah,
hypnosis?
yeah. Yeah, so it's more brainwashing, but right? Most coaches are trying to talk you into change. I just go in there and change it.
Hmm.
So when we talk about mind control, it is mind control, but we're controlling our own minds, right? Our minds usually are out of control or they've been programmed by others or our society or the place that we grew up around or our parents' beliefs. So, we were already brainwashed as children to think, feel, and behave the way that we do. And so this is more like taking back control as an adult and deciding, how do I want to show up? And so, it's not brainwashing like you see in the movies, but it really is more of imagine that you already have this incredible computer. It's very powerful, but you downloaded some malware. And now all of a sudden, this computer virus is not allowing the program or the software to run the way it was designed. So I go in there like the Geek Squad for your brain, and I simply remove the malware, right? So we optimize the computer operating system, with new beliefs, new habits, new ways of showing up that feel like they're just a part of you now at the identity level. So you're not having to use positive thinking. You're not having to use willpower or try to talk yourself into feeling differently or behaving differently. You're just doing it because we've upgraded the beliefs at the foundational level. And that's what makes this different. Most people focus on mindset. I focus on what's driving the mindset underneath.
So when it comes to uh, most of your the people that come to you, what are some of the most common things that you work with them on? Like I think fear is one of the biggest ones, and fear it might be fear of the unknown, fear of success, fear of failure. It all stems from fear. So how do
Yes.
you go in and go okay, let's change that and fix it?
Yes, yeah, great question. So the biggest fear that we all have is the fear of not being good enough. And if I'm not enough, I won't be loved. So how do I get love, right? Or how do I feel validated? How do I know that I'm enough? And that's where all the other fears come from. Like you said, the fear of success, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of embarrassment, the fear of being humiliated, the fear of being wrong, right? Or appearing weak, right? Or missing opportunities or imposter syndrome, all the fears that we have. A burnout is just a type of fear. And it comes from this feeling that we're not enough. And that feeling comes from a belief that we picked up when we were kids that we didn't even know we picked up, right? So we go through an experience that our brain is always trying to form meaning and trying to figure out what does this mean? What does that mean about me, about you, about the world we live in? And our brain makes up these beliefs without our permission and often without us even knowing it. So we're walking around with a lot of beliefs that the 7-year-old version of us adopted. And so a lot of those need to be updated. The way you do it is in session one, I use the awakening experience. And what I do is basically start with the feeling that you're having. So, say you're feeling really pressured about something, you're just trying to make something work, and it just feels like the harder you try, the more it gets blocked. And so, what we do is we double down, we work harder, we go faster. But we feel like the more we put into it, the more resistance comes up. And so, we start with that feeling of resistance and we just follow it back to the very first time you ever felt that way. So I developed a simple technique that helps you to go right back to the moment when you first had that kind of experience to find the belief that was formed as a result of going through that initial experience. Most people are using talk therapy or free association, and it could take months or years to try to figure out where what that belief is or where it came from. We're able to do it in like the first 15 minutes. And so that's why people, high achievers like this because it's so fast and so efficient. And it works, right? And so you go back to that moment in time and we give you the resources that if you would have had the resources at that time, then maybe you would have looked at it differently or it wouldn't have been traumatic or you would have been able to handle it in a new way. So we go back and we give you those resources. We also go back and fill you with love and self-acceptance because that's so important. Love is the most powerful emotion in the universe. Fear is second. All right. And so what we do is we fill ourselves with that love. If you know you're loved, if you know you're enough, if you know you're safe, if you know that things are going to work out for you eventually, sooner or later, then that gives you the freedom to make bold moves, to take risks, right? To get outside your comfort zone, to do the things that might make you nervous or cause you to hesitate. And now you have cleaner decisions. You move faster. You have laser focus instead of being all over the place, right? And this builds competency. And so it's not just about confidence, it's about competency. And that can happen just by upgrading that core belief, often within minutes.
No, you keep on saying it's within minutes or 15 minutes and whatnot. Is the turnaround pretty much the same for like in general for most people that you work with? Like does people snap into that mindset right away?
Yes, yes. Now, there are a few more steps,
Hmm.
right? My book, One Belief Away, there might be a few beliefs away from
Right.
some of the goals that you want to accomplish. So the goal isn't to just try to fix things super fast. That's not the point. The point is to help you recognize how fast you can change,
Hmm.
right? How quickly you can shift from feeling like I'm not enough to I'm more than enough. I don't belong in this room to I do belong in this room and any other room I walk into as well,
Hmm.
right? That belief that I'm not. I'm not ready for this versus the belief that this is how I become ready for this. Or a lot of people have fears of running out. I'm going to run out of money. I'm going to run out of time. I'm going to run out of opportunity, right? And so we're not running out, we're running up. Right? And so when you just little micro shifts like that can cause people to go, huh, never thought of it that way before. And so you can upgrade beliefs and then at the same time you can create these what I call micro shifts. You're also just one shift away from, getting to that next level of breakthrough. And so these little micro shifts, and I can share some of them with you today as well, so that people can start to use them to advance their career, to advance their love life, or whatever else they want to improve.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I appreciate that because with you sharing some of those shifts and some of those steps for people, can you kind of use a previous example or an example that you actually had a fear or a limiting belief that you once had, applying these shifts and then getting to where you are today, and how long of a process did that take? Or maybe one of your best success stories with your clients that you could share.
Sure. Well, I have plenty of all that. I'm always working on me. If I hadn't been working on me, I wouldn't have had the confidence to have this conversation with you. I
Mm.
mean, I had so much anxiety, fear, worry. Every fear I had, I turned it into a goal. Your pain becomes your purpose. I always say that your biggest breakthroughs are hiding in the places you don't want to go. So if you want to create a breakthrough today, look at where you're resisting, where you're procrastinating, where you're hesitating, and go there on purpose because it's not as scary as you think it's going to be. It's like the monster in the closet. You're so afraid there's a monster in the closet that you finally open the door, turn the light on, and there's nothing there. It's the buildup in our mind that affects us the most. So I remember I had a client named Joe that came to me several years ago, and he was in sales, and he had a really hard time selling very much product. He was in the products and services industry for a national company, and he struggled to sell a couple $100,000 a year in that business, which should have been easy. But he didn't want to come across as pushy. And so what we did was I recognized that he had this belief inside that he was afraid that he was going to become like his father because his father was very abusive growing up. And so this guy's name was Joe, and Joe was like, I don't ever want to become my dad. So anytime I get angry, I shove it down. Anytime I feel like I'm being too aggressive, I just pull back. And so it did not allow him to ever ask for the sale. He never asked for the sale because he thought that meant he was being pushy or aggressive when he was just being assertive and taking a stand for his customer. But he didn't see it that way. And he had those beliefs that were sabotaging him. So we upgraded those beliefs. We made him feel like he's his own man. We filled him with love. We filled him with self-confidence and self-respect. Then I gave him some little shifts, like instead of making it about his performance, we're going to make it about providing the customer as much value as possible, right? And that's what he did. And so then COVID hit, and several of his key customers were not spending any money. They just really held back. These were big companies, and they held back, just waiting to see what was going to happen. Joe went in there with confidence. He went in there and built a relationship. He started helping them feel good about themselves. He started being the support system in their lives. He started figuring out how to help them to keep their business going without having to come up with a bunch of extra capital. And then when COVID passed, and it was like 2 years later, and they were ready to buy again, they all went to Joe. And within that next 2 years after COVID, he sold $54 million,
Wow.
$54 million in products and services just by upgrading his beliefs.
That is awesome. One of my questions when it comes to this type of thing is that, okay, you're helping people kind of recognize why they have a certain limiting beliefs or kind of programming and where they got that thought process from, whether it's their parents or their guardians or society or whatnot, and they became who they are. They recognize that that was the issue, and then they do a shift. Is that because of all this stuff that makes this more effective, or is it just as effective if they implemented this at the very beginning without all this stuff? Like if somebody was like with kids who have no reference to all this stuff yet, and you start giving this type of mindset, is that just as effective, or even more so because they started so early?
Well, that's a great question. I think everybody should go through these one belief away experiences because they're designed to help you have a set of beliefs that allow you to love yourself and love others in a more powerful, profound way.
Mhm.
The second experience is called the releasing, and it's about learning how to forgive and how to let go of things. Most of us hold on to our hurts, our grudges, our resentments, the upsetting experiences that we've been through. Wayne Dyer once said that when you get bit by a poisonous snake, the snake bite hurts, but that's not what kills you. It's the poison that's left inside. And our goal is to get the poison out. But most people protect that poison because they think protecting it is keeping them from getting bit again. And so Buddha once said that to hold a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. It doesn't work that way. So when you learn how to use forgiveness, when you learn how your mind works, like for example, your mind works like a GPS. You tell it where you want to go and it starts to take you there. Most people do the exact opposite when they're talking to themselves. They're focusing on what they don't want, where they don't want to go, what they don't want to have happen, and what they're upset about. That's like telling your GPS, I don't want to go to the post office. Getting directions to the post office, right? So it will start to take you there. So teaching people how their mind really works, upgrading their beliefs, and giving them some tools that allow them to be able to influence their energy is powerful. If you don't have any experience in this, it will create the foundation for you. If
Mhm.
you have experience with this, I have a lot of clients who are the experts, right? Who are writing the books, who are on the stages, who are on TV, and but they still have their beliefs and some of their baggage that never got resolved, even if they're professionally very successful. And so it doesn't really matter which place you're coming from, whether you have no experience or you have a lot of experience, upgrading your beliefs and using some of these micro shifts will just take you from where you are to where you want to be and help you close that gap faster.
Awesome. Now, when it comes to having that type of mindset for microshifts and also upgrading that belief system, is that something that people can implement every single day as like an ex daily exercise kind of
I do. Yeah.
thing?
So there was a uh, um, William James was I had to remember the guy's name. William James. He was kind of like the father of modern psychology, and he said the greatest discovery of the 20th century is that the quality of our life is being determined by the quality of our thinking, and thinking is really a process of walking around asking and answering questions in our own mind. And so ultimately, the quality of your life is being determined by the quality of those questions that you ask yourself all day long. So I started paying attention to the questions people ask. And there's two types. I call them power questions and lousy questions. 75% of people are walking around, Fong, asking lousy questions. Like, what if it goes wrong? What if it doesn't work out? Whose fault is this? Why does this keep happening? What's wrong with me? All right. Whose fault is this? And so those questions, remember your inner GPS, they cause you to focus on what you don't want and they just steal your energy away where power questions do the opposite. So power questions would be like, well, what do I want to have happen? How do I want this to go? How do I want to feel right now? And what's one way I could feel that way that would make me feel proud of myself? Who can I lean on for support? What resources do I have? How can I make this more fun? When you ask yourself questions like that, it immediately empowers you and allows you to focus on what you want. And when you ask your mind questions like that, it will give you answers and help you to take that next step forward. That's something you can do all day long. We all have these thoughts that pop in our mind. It's like, where'd that come from? Thoughts of fear and worry and things not working out. I used to constantly have this fear that I was going to run out of money. Even when I had more money in the bank than I ever had before, I remember sitting there one day and this thought hit me that what if I lose it all? And then I was feeling panicky, right? And everything was great, but my mind started playing tricks with me, and I had to learn how to use the power questions and maybe power breathing, how to activate my relaxation response inside just by breathing through my nose instead of my mouth.
Mm.
So I take a power breath and then I ask a power question and it helps me shift. Like, it helps me get my shift together in those moments so that I can feel empowered and prepared. So I'm using the power of my mind to prepare me instead of scare me. That's
Now,
something you can do all day long.
exactly. Now, you work with a lot of people from all different walks of life and also different levels of success. Some people
Yes.
who have huge credibility and some people who are just starting out. Have
Hmm.
you, what are some of the common things that they struggle with when trying to implement this stuff? Like, it's one thing to say, okay, you have to shift your mind thinking about from a different perspective. It's another thing for them to actually do it. So, what is the biggest struggle that people have by making that shift?
So that's a really great question. And the struggle becomes so much less because we are working on the foundational issue. Imagine you got a barrel and the barrel has a hole in the bottom of it. And everybody's focused on bringing that water and pouring it into the barrel, right? I'm focused on let's patch that hole first because otherwise, you're putting too much effort in and lead generation, trying to get my funnels to convert, all these different things. And yet they're not patching the hole that's in the bottom. And
Mhm.
so when you do that, the container itself begins to hold more capacity just by patching the hole in the bottom, right? So a lot of people will not have that kind of struggle that we're used to having when we're trying to change because the approach is so different. And so people will start to feel, so I would say like 80% of people that are going through this will start to report they're sleeping better, they have more energy, their thoughts are being more positive. And then we go into session two with the releasing. And then they start saying, I'm having new opportunities come to me that I wasn't expecting. I feel much more confident and motivated in general. And then by session number three, we're doing the shifting where they're shifting into what I call you 2.0, Fong 2.0, the empowered, optimized version of you. You're already amazing, right? But you're not using the iPhone 1. You might be using the iPhone 17 because you want the best optimized, program that we have and or phone that we have, right? Well, we can do that for ourselves as well. And a lot of people just don't know how to do that. So there are people though that will get stuck. And so I love that because I'm like, all right, what's going on? Because we're going to turn that into an opportunity. My whole focus is on what gets people stuck and how do you get them unstuck. And what I find is that they have a values conflict in there that we didn't know about. They had to go through this journey. They had to go through door one and two and three to get to four where they're blocked, right? So you have to go through these steps. And we find that the values conflict is if I become too successful, I won't have any family time because I already sacrificed so much time with my marriage or my kids. And if I get more successful, I'm never going to see them. And so suddenly they start missing appointments, or suddenly they just feel like, they're burning out or they're not delegating anymore and they're getting all stressed out. And it's because it's a protective mechanism inside their brain because they think they're going to lose their family. So that becomes an issue, right? Or maybe they've sacrificed so much for their business that now their health is in jeopardy. They're drinking energy drinks, they're smoking cigarettes, they're overeating, they're drinking too much alcohol because they're trying to balance, the pressure that they're dealing with. And so now there's a conflict inside. And if we know that there's going to be a conflict and we can upgrade that, it's just two different opposing beliefs. And if we can synergize those beliefs, then the conflict disappears and people just continue to excel and take new action, get new results. It reinforces the new beliefs and then, of course, we just kind of optimize as we move forward until they get to the next set of challenge and the next limiting belief. And then we just repeat the process. And that's how it works on a, larger scale.
Now, for you, you've gone through all the ups and downs and you've implemented this in your own life. Is there one example that you could share that it was the biggest struggle for you to get through and the biggest blockage that you had to kind of face that you were able to overcome?
Well, there were many. Because remember, I started out with a lot of anxiety and this fear of not being good enough. But I remember something that really helped me with my business and with speaking in general, right? Because I would learn something that I try to get it to as many people as I can. So I was on TV, I was doing speaking engagements, however I could get the message out there. Because my goal was to end needless emotional suffering. I know how much suffering I went through. If I could ease your pain, I want to do it, and I want to do it right now. How do I
Right.
help you? Right. And um, so one of the best things I ever did was hire a coach, a business coach. Right. And I didn't know what that was and what was going to happen. I just knew that it was $5,000 and I didn't have $5,000 at the time. I knew that some crazy bank gave me a credit card. And so I maxed it out. And then I went home and had a panic attack. What have I done? Because I didn't know how to train my brain yet. in that way. And so I was thinking that I'm just in more debt instead of being excited about the opportunity it's going to create, which it did.
Mhm.
So one of the lessons that I learned from that business coach is that when I was speaking, I was always trying to prove that I was worthy of being the speaker. I was always trying to list my credentials. I was always trying to talk about the book that I wrote. I was always trying to prove, that I'm good enough and you can like me. You should like me, right? So he said, you're always making it about your performance. And that's what's causing you to be so nervous. That's what causes you to go up there and jump around trying to be like Tony Robbins. He says, we already got one of those. Just be the next Tim Sure. Just be that guy. I'm like, no one's going to like that guy. And he's like, well, just try. Right. And so I had to learn how to shift to where I had to love me instead of proving my worth. And then I made it, instead of my performance, I made it about providing the value. It was no longer about my performance. It was about helping others. I became others focused instead of self-focused. When I decided that I was going to just serve that audience, I was going to give them what they need, I was going to focus on them, and I didn't care if they were going to throw rotten fruit at me. I was just going to add as much value as I possibly could. It changed the game because I became more confident. People felt more connected to me. People were like, I saw you last year and I saw you this year, and it's like two different people. What did you do? And I'm like,
Right.
well, I stopped making it about me. I started making it about you. And so that was upgrading the belief and then shifting that where my focus was made a huge impact on me professionally.
I can so relate to that experience. I mean, the very first coach I had, I think was they were charging me what $500-600 a month, and at the time I'm like, I can't do that, and it's not possible. However, when you look back, it's like, wait a minute, that coach helped me get my first rental property that cash flows over $1,000 a month. Hey, it's already
Yeah.
paid itself off, kind of thing, and everything else
Yes.
after that is bonus. And it's that
Yes.
mind shift that you go, hey, this is actually an investment. This is actually something that's going to get me something more. It's no longer that expense. And then with regards to the speaking thing there, I think it was I don't remember who I was speaking with, but it's probably one of my other coaches who says that if you're nervous on stage, it's because you're selfish. I'm like, what? Me? Selfish? No. He goes, yeah, because all you're thinking about is yourself. I'm like, ah, that's true. So
Yeah.
really, like complete what you were saying, as you focus on the audience, adding value, spreading your message, making sure that they're getting what that's gonna benefit them, then that's all that matters. And then all of a sudden that nervousness goes away. So totally relatable. And thank you for sharing that because sometimes lots of people don't hear that enough and they just stop and they don't go out there and do any speaking engagements or they don't write that book or they don't go and try out their first rental property or whatnot. Speaking of
Yeah.
books, you have 7 books out. Share with us kind of the lead up to each one or the ones that you want to talk more about, and also where can people get those?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Fong. So, yeah, the first book I wrote, what I would do is it was a little selfish because the first book was called What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. And after
Yeah.
about 5 years in my private practice, I found myself saying the same things over and over. So I thought if I just put it in a book, I could just hand it to you, and just read this, and I wouldn't have to talk as much. And so, and then I started every 5 years, I put what I learned into another book. And so I've just been doing it ever since. And so I've been in private practice for 30 years now, and so I just keep writing another book and trying to add more value based on what I've learned, and this will help you. And even if you get one idea out of a book, it's worth it. And so a lot of my books were written to help people with confidence and overcome self-sabotage because that's what I needed. So that's what I wrote about. And the last book that I wrote was called Get Out of Your Way, and it was all about how to eliminate self-sabotage and win your life. And then the latest book I wrote and published about 2 years ago is called One Belief Away, and I wrote that with Joe Vitale because he's 20 years older than me, and I knew Joe, and so I put everything that I learned along with these One Belief Away experiences in the book. So it's not a book that tells you how to do things; it's a book that starts to change you as you're reading it, right? So I wanted it to be an experience, and so I put all my thousands of dollars of scripts and stuff into the book so that you can actually have breakthroughs just by reading the chapters. And then the stuff that Joe Vitale is famous for, instead of me just trying to paraphrase him, I interviewed him and I got it straight from him and I put it into the final chapters of the book. So I got a couple other ones coming out. One's a book of prayers for business owners. to develop your spiritual side. It's called Faithful. Because
Please
I
work,
don't know
please
about
work,
you.
please work.
Yeah, please trust me. I've prayed a lot over the last 30 years. Uh and then I also during COVID I was able to launch this summit called the Legend Summit. And
Mhm.
I mean it was just a miracle. I got Bob Proctor and Brian Tracy
Oh,
and Les
wow.
Brown and Ken Blanchard and Tommy Hopkins and I mean just the greats and interviewed them and I turned this into a book called Timeless Wisdom. And
Mhm.
so again, it's all about trying to do something because I know there's a lot of books out there and people don't feel like they have any time to read. So if I'm going to create a book, it's going to be really practical with tools you can use right away to deal with the stuff that's making you feel stressed out right now.
Mhm.
You can get all my books at like timshire.com or indiehypnosis.com or amazon.com, little bookstore online. And we could put the links in the show notes.
Okay, will do. So speaking for today, uh, do you still have any stress? Do you still have any fears? And how often, if you do have any, does that actually show up?
That's a great question too. Yes, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to have stress, right? Again, I'll refer to Buddha. He said that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional,
Mhm.
right? And I've had a lot of both. And so when I would suffer over something, when I was worried, stressed, afraid, or pressured, I would get stuck in it for days at a time. And now it's for minutes at a time because I've learned how to short circuit it, right? And ask myself what's great about this situation and have a whole different viewpoint about it. So that, looking at it as an opportunity instead of as something that's going to be bad for me. And the better you get at that, I think the more mastery you have over life, the more your emotional intelligence increases. Uh, there's always challenges, either with work or with family or your marriage or whatever it may be. And I just keep focusing on growing and trying to become the best version of me and that I can be. And my goal these days is to squeeze the most amount of joy out of every day that I can, as opposed to just trying to make more money or have more success. I really focus on just having more joy, and then everything else kind of flows from there.
Now, you mentioned that you still have some books coming out, and also you have the summit, and then potentially more. What is the next big thing for you? Like, what are you very excited for that's coming up?
Well, I have been working with venture capitalists on helping founders with their performance because the higher you go up the chain when you're in charge of maybe $100 million company, the amount of stress that people go through is incredible. And everybody looks at them as, oh, you're lucky, you're living the dream, but they don't understand the amount of uncertainty that we carry, the amount of pressure when you feel like it's all riding on you, heavy is the head that wears the crown. And so I started helping those people, those men and women in those positions. And it's been fantastic because when you help someone in that position, it runs down and helps everybody else in the company. And so I can help thousands and thousands of people a year, just by empowering their leaders.
Right.
And so I love doing that. And then companies become more, well, VC, venture capitalists, are interested in making money, obviously. But it's nice when the company can also care about their people and the planet. And so, people, planet, and profitability, I think are the three P's that we should strive for as business owners. So, but that's what I've been loving doing right now. It allows me to make the biggest impact.
Something else with regards to mind shifts is that when people go through that process, it's awkward for them. It feels like it's not them anymore. And there's that period of time where they start to feel, hey, I'm no longer myself. It's not authentic. How do people see me? How do you shorten that period of time so that eventually it becomes natural for them and it is their authentic self?
It's a great question, Fong, because a lot of people, when I talk to them in the beginning, especially if they know anything about my background, they're like,
Mm.
I don't want you messing with my head. I don't want you messing with my mojo. This is what got me to where I am right now. I don't want you messing around with that, right?
Yeah,
And I'm like, I'm not messing around, I'm optimizing. Like you are a high performance race car, but you got a parking brake set and you didn't even know it, and it's creating internal drag. All I'm
right.
going to do is go in there and release the brake. You're who you are. We're just going to make you even better than who you are, right? So we're not changing your personality. We're just getting rid of the hidden constraints that are
Mm,
getting in the way, right? And that's just going to help you to become more of who you are. So it's not like mindset work where they feel like they're having to lose themselves to gain a new version of themselves. No, no, no. This is just taking away the pressure so that you are able to make decisions faster. You're able to hire more effectively. You're able to delegate without bottlenecking your growth because your control and trust issues are causing you to have to micromanage everything that's going on inside. And so if we could release that, you would just feel happier. You would feel more peaceful. And that's why I said in the beginning, and you said it as well, which I appreciated, is that we want to, succeed with peace instead of pressure. We got this hustle culture, because of social media that we just got to work harder and drive harder and man up and do all these things, right? Well, that's what leads to a heart attack. If I was doing that, I would have lost all the rest of my hair, and I can't do that. I'm hanging on to what I got, and so we don't need to drink 50 Red Bulls. We can do it with a sense of peace and joy. People just haven't been taught how to do that.
mm.
And so through amazing programs like yours, which is so awesome that you have this show, Fong,
Thank
people
you.
are getting access to the tools and the strategies. So it's good for you for making this available to more people.
So I know you mentioned about the venture capitalists as one of the more exciting things that you're working on. What are the types of people or the types of clientele that you're looking for right now? Like aside from the venture capitalists, and maybe within those, what kind of requirements or what kind of statuses should these groups be that would get the most benefit from working with you?
Well, my niche is business owners and high performing entrepreneurs,
Mm,
right? In whatever industry or space. I work with, celebrities and athletes and entertainers, but our programs are for everybody, right? Because I didn't have any of that growing up. My dad worked at a steel mill, right? I was very I wouldn't say I was poor, but I didn't have any money. I mean, I remember I remember giving blood sometimes to be able to pay my electric bill.
wow.
Right? And so yeah, so I had to kind of work my way up through the years, and so now that I've been had more success, I haven't forgotten who I am or where I came from. And so I have programs that, will help you wherever you're at. So don't feel like if you're not running a big company or something that you don't get access because that's false, right? So we've got the books, we've got audio courses and programs that you can use right now that will help you. And you can find me on social media. I try to keep myself as accessible as possible so that you can reach out or you can, we'll give you I've got a high performance switch that's a 4 minute video that will help you get into flow state. So we can give that to all your listeners as long as they are subscribed. They give us a 5-star review. You share us with your friends so we can grow this show, right? So that Fong can get this out to a larger audience and make a bigger impact. And so we'll give you that for free. And but that's so anybody can benefit from this, but especially if you happen to be a business owner, right? And you're feeling the squeeze,
Awesome.
this is going to be exactly what you were looking for, even if you didn't know you were looking for it.
Mhm. Awesome. Now I know you dropped a lot of good wisdom and golden nuggets during this period of time. Let's say we put you back on the world stage and you have a couple minutes to share one more life lesson or one more message that you want everybody to remember Tim for. What would that be?
Mhm. Just remember that you're just one belief away from your next big breakthrough. I mean, you are already enough. You've already won just by being alive. You, in fact, are a miracle just because you're alive and here. And so let's decide that every day moving forward is a bonus round, right? You don't have to prove yourself. You're already way more than enough. And if you just keep focusing on what you're going to, instead of worrying about what's going to happen to you, focus on what you're going to bring to the situation and decide to bring joy to each situation, then success for you is inevitable.
Nicely said, and hopefully everybody lives to that statement, and I'm pretty sure they'll be more happy and more successful. So thank you very much for that. Before I let you go, I got five rapid fire questions for you. Give me the first thing that comes to mind. All right.
Okay.
You're stranded on a deserted island, one food to eat for the rest of your life, no consequence. You'll still be healthy and in shape. What would that be?
Well, no matter what food it's going to be, you're probably going to get a little tired of it. But if hopefully I'm stranded by somewhere that has king crab legs.
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Hollywood calls and goes, "Hey, we love your story. Your life story is amazing. We would love to do a biopic of you. Who would you cast to play you?"
Oh, that's a good one. Um, well, let's see. The guy that seems to be pretty popular right now is oh, what's his name though? He's in Running Man. Do you
I
know?
know who
Have you
you're
seen
talking about.
that?
I don't remember his name though.
Yeah, yeah. Or Chad Powers.
Uh,
So he's not famous enough for everybody to remember his name. So if he's not available, Brad Pitt would be fine.
okay. Yeah, sure, whatever. Just bad fit. So let's say both of them show up your door and they're trying to win your approval to pick one of them to play you. They come, they want to hang out, they want to get to know you. They're both hungry. So you're there and going, "Hey, no worries, come over here. I got something prepared for you. It's my special dish." What would that be?
Oh my gosh. Wow, my special dish. What would that be? Uh, hmm. Well, that's really good. I would be reverting to my wife for that because she would be someone who would help me come through with that. So otherwise, it's going to be Chipotle.
It's like, "Hey, wife, no pressure, but we have Brad Pitt and the Running Man here waiting for dinner." But anyway, uh,
Yeah, honey, where'd she go?
you're on a road trip for hours on end, one song to listen to without getting sick of. What would that song be?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, what's a song? I don't know if I would get sick of it, but when I would go on tours or speaking engagements and stuff, Whitesnake, Here We Go Again was the song I would always play every single time. I know it dates me a little bit, but that was the song that I played all the time. And so now though I'm older, so it'd probably be some kind of fast jazz.
Nicely done. A number from 1 to 4.
Three.
One, two, three. So the word is badminton. So if you had to use the word badminton as a metaphor for success, how is success like badminton?
Well, success is like badminton because you got to make sure that you're in control of your thoughts. And so when life knocks that birdie over the net towards you and it's some kind of scary negative thought, all you got to do is hit it right back, right? And redirect that energy so that using your power questions, you're like, well, what do I want to have happen? How do I want to feel? What would I like to have happen as a result of this? What's wonderful about this? Until eventually you just win.
Nicely done. So that's how success is like badminton. Thank you very much for your time, your wisdom, your advice. Any final words from you?
No, this was wonderful. I love your questions, and finally I've done a lot of shows and interviews over the years, and these were new questions, and I really loved it. I love your energy. I'm really happy that we got to spend this time together. So just thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your time. For everybody out there, he's Tim. I'm Fong. Until next time, today is the day to lock your peak potential. We'll see you later.